Elon Musk hosted his very first cabinet meeting as president today, and, well, this is how it went.
And I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption. But we do need to move quickly if we're to achieve a $1 trillion deficit reduction in financial year 2026. It requires saving $4 billion per day, every day, from now through the end of September. But we can do it, and we will do it.
I'm sorry, can we just talk about the example that he used to defend himself? Sorry we canceled Ebola prevention? Sorry we canceled efforts to stop transmission of the most deadly disease in the world? Everybody makes mistakes, right? Who among us hasn't accidentally exacerbated the spread of a deadly contagion that would decimate the American population? Am I right? And this isn't even the only example like that. What about how Elon and Doge fired 350 employees at the National Nuclear Security Administration? They haphazardly fired the people in charge of our nuclear arsenal and security. I'm sorry, but what? That is not an oopsie, as Elon's framing it. It is a massive fuck-up, one that could have massive ramifications around the world. The fact that America is a nuclear superpower is why we are able to preserve so much of the post-World War II order. The implications, then, of Elon crippling our nuclear capabilities are impossible to overstate. The executive director of the Arms Control Association said, quote, "The Doge people are coming in with absolutely no knowledge of what these departments are responsible for. They don't seem to realize that it's actually the Department of Nuclear Weapons more than it is the Department of Energy." But hey, Elon said that they're going to make mistakes here and there, so I guess as long as he apologizes, then no harm, no foul, right? Elon and Doge have laid off veterans, researchers working on cancer treatment, opioid addiction, prosthetics, and burn pit exposure. They've laid off 1,300 employees at the CDC, about 10% of the agency's workforce, which is a choice in the aftermath of a global pandemic. Over 130 were let go at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which oversees the nation's critical infrastructure, including the federal efforts to secure election systems. Thousands of workers at the IRS, who were responsible for bringing wait times down to just 4 minutes on average during the Biden administration, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. 1,000 National Park Service employees who maintain and clean our parks. Effectively all Consumer Financial Protection Bureau employees who were responsible for returning $21 billion to hundreds of millions of consumers who were screwed over by predatory financial institutions. And the list goes on and on. And of course, this is all under the pretense of cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. But you know what the first line of defense is against waste, fraud, and abuse? That would be the inspectors general, who Trump decided to fire right off the bat.
You also wouldn't fire the IGs. I mean, IGs, inspectors general, I will tell you from working for 2 Democratic presidents, they're a headache for everyone. You know why? Because they're investigating every agency and they find stuff, including waste and fraud and abuse. They wouldn't be firing them. If they actually cared about waste, fraud, and abuse, they'd be taking their reports, they'd be looking at them and figuring out what to use to root out and to address.
The whole anti-corruption crusade is an absolute fraud. They started by decimating the ranks of the inspectors general. These are the people whose job is actually day in and day out, 365 days a year, to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse in the departments and the agencies. They got rid of 17 of them in the first week. I think they just got rid of the 18th because they were mad at that one. If you were interested in fighting corruption, those are the people you'd be talking to. They're actually doing it day in and day out.
In other words, it's already beyond clear that what Elon and Trump are doing is massively disingenuous. But worse, the American people can clearly see that. According to the Washington Post, Musk having a prominent role in the administration is viewed as a bad thing, 54-28 by a nearly 2-to-1 ratio. The Post Ipsos poll showed Americans disapprove by a similarly wide margin, 52-26, of Musk shutting down federal government programs that he decides are unnecessary. And Americans said 63-34 that they are concerned about Musk's team getting access to their data, which is the subject of high-profile legal fights. Even 37% of Republican-leaning voters said that they are at least somewhat concerned about Musk getting their data. Which, of course, raises the question, do these Republicans recognize that Elon is a liability for them? Well, here's what happened when those same officials themselves were posed the question at this cabinet meeting.
You could ask me or Elon. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I just wanted to ask you that President Trump put out a Truth Social today saying that everybody in the cabinet was happy with you. I just wondered if you had heard otherwise, and if you had heard anything about members of the cabinet who weren't happy with the way things were going, and if so, what are you doing to address those any dissatisfaction?
Hey, Elon, let the cabinet speak just for a second. Anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, we'll throw him out of here. Is anybody unhappy? We have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled.
As if anyone is going to speak out against Elon Musk when Trump is literally threatening to fire anybody who does, and then devolving into a frantic clapping fit for good measure. I have seen more discerning generals surrounding Kim Jong-un than what I just saw at that cabinet meeting. The reality is that Elon is an anchor around all of their necks, but because Trump wants him around, they've all tied themselves to this sinking ship. And of course, Trump won't push back against Elon because he is indebted to him. Elon gave him hundreds of millions of dollars in cash during the campaign, and now he's getting his end of the quid pro quo, which means hollowing out government agencies that were investigating or regulating or fining him, which means privatizing agencies and enriching Elon's companies who can then go in and fill that void, which means allowing Elon to gain access to Americans' personal data that will, help his AI company gain a competitive advantage among his competitors. Trump and Elon will frame this as some selfless act of patriotism. Nothing these people do is selfless. Mark my words, they are deriving a personal, professional, or financial benefit from everything. Sometimes it's obvious, as is the case with these meme coins, and sometimes it's less obvious, as is the case with Elon rooting around in Americans' personally protected information. But the people winning here are not Americans. Hell, it's not even Trump's own base and voters. It is the people at the very top, the people who already hold most of the wealth and power in this country, who are just seeking to consolidate even more of it, all on the backs of Americans who are getting screwed over on a daily basis, and who increasingly can see the fact that that is exactly what's happening. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.